Very well, we continue with the debate on the principles of P105, the Draft Food Jersey Law. Next to speak is Deputy Oziff. Deputy Oziff? Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles? One last try, Deputy Oziff. If no other member wishes to speak on the principles, then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
The last lap, sir, or as I like to think of it, the dessert course. And as some members will know, I do indeed have a bit of a sweet tooth. So I'd like to thank members for their contributions and to pick up on some of the points that were raised. First, Deputy Luce remarked that this law has been long delayed, and that is correct. However, one must always look for silver linings, and there is a small advantage in delay in that it has allowed the law to respond more fully to the post-Brexit situation. So I'd like to talk briefly about trade and the import of food that we might consider to be of lower welfare standard, which was raised by several members. Whenever this kind of issue arises, we all crave certainty, absolute clarity, clear black and white rules. In my limited but hopefully rapidly growing experience, this is not easy to provide in matters relating to international trade agreements. The formal situation is that Jersey does retain the right to restrict imports of foodstuffs, for example, as it does with the import of liquid milk. It's also the case that the free trade agreements which the UK signs with third countries are not automatically extended to Jersey. We have to agree to the goods chapter, as it's called, being extended to the island, and it is through this mechanism that we might find ourselves exposed to importing items that the UK has agreed to import with which we may not be comfortable. However, it is also the case that there is a decision of the Assembly that we should seek to extend goods chapters to the island. And we must also be mindful that the UK negotiates free trade agreements on the basis that they will be extended that the goods chapters will be extended to all the Crown dependencies. So the situation is nuanced. We do retain rights, but we would have to be wary of how we use them, particularly as we depend on the UK for entrustments in areas of international trade and indeed for the licensing of medicinal cannabis. So we need to be a responsible partner. It's for this reason that I regard labelling regulations as a sensible, pragmatic extra string to our bow in terms of giving us some de facto, if not de jure, control over imports. I would not wish to make too much of it, but members might like to consider whether a labelling requirement for a particular food product might be worded in such a way that food importers might end up questioning whether there was any point in bringing that product to our market. As I say, it's a pragmatic extra power. Let me talk about the southern supply route. It's important to say that the reason why we'll be able through this law to support imports from France is that by having a licensing scheme for importers and exports, we hope to be able to provide reassurance to the UK that we are not a backdoor to the UK market. In practice, this means that we can allow the import of food without an onerous inspection regime that might be the case were that food to be going directly to the UK, because we will be able to provide certainty through our licensing scheme that anything coming into Jersey is not going any further. In terms of labelling of food from the continent, which was raised, we already, of course, have access in Jersey to food from many parts of Europe and the world that is labelled in Polish, Romanian, French, and so on. Where that food is produced for the mass market, it is common for the main ingredients and other vital information, cooking and so on, instructions and so on, to be in English, certainly in my experience when I'm in French supermarkets. But where it isn't, we will be able to make our own labelling regulations as we feel is appropriate to our market. On kitchen sizes, The main risk here, I think, that we want to identify is cross-contamination and hygiene, and this will be captured within the priority secondary legislation, in particular the hygiene regulations. I think we're unlikely to specify kitchen size directly because there are actually many ways of working safely, including time separation of different activities, and there might be only low-risk products being used in a small kitchen, for example. So I hope that's answered the points that were raised in the discussion, and I would like to move to put the proposition to the Assembly through the principles.
The principles to be voted on. Do you call for the appel?
Right.
Invite members to return to their seat. The vote is on the principles for the draft food law. I'll ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier
I would like to vote for, please. Deputy Farnham, sir. Thank you.
I don't know who's speaking, but I haven't yet closed the voting, so it's possible to vote in the chat in the normal way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The principles have been adopted. 43 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions. Deputy Luce, does your panel wish to call the matter in?
No, thank you, sir.
How do you wish to deal with the matter in second reading then? How do you wish to propose the articles, Minister? You'd like to propose them en bloc? Are they seconded en bloc?
Yes, sir.
And does any member wish to speak on the articles in second reading? Those in favour of adopting the articles in second reading kindly show. Those against? Do you propose in third reading, Minister? You should stand if you're.
Yes, please, sir.
Right, very much. And is it seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in third reading? No member wishes to speak.
No member wishes to speak.
Deputy Joseph.
Deputy Joseph.
Sir, may I just add from an external relations point of view in relation to the extra matters which Deputy Kirsten Morell and the Minister has also ably dealt with. The external relations will be dealing with the trade matters but safeguarding Jersey's position in the best way that we possibly can. I don't wish to raise any other further observations apart from to allay members' concerns in relation to trade matters, that these will be dealt with by Jersey officials, and this week we've been involved directly in certain trade negotiations for the first time, having our Jersey people involved in some of the trade discussions, both in terms of goods and services. And I hope that's helpful to members.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak in third reading? No member wishes to speak in third reading. Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
I'll take the vote, please, sir.
Very well. Those in favour of adopting in third reading kindly show.
Could we have the appel, please?
The appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. And I ask the greffier to open the voting. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The law has been adopted in third reading, 43 votes pour, no votes contra, no abstentions. That concludes the public business, so we now come to the arrangement of future business. Right up.
Thank you, sir. 2 propositions have been lodged since the consolidated order paper was published. Deputy Scott has lodged Assembly approval for supplementary planning guidance P114-2022, and this has been listed for the January meeting. The Minister for the Environment has lodged the draft Sea Fisheries TCA licensing of fishing boats, amendment of law and regulations P115-2022, and these have been listed for the meeting on the 7th of February 2023. The next meeting you'll be relieved to know is unlikely to be as long as the one we've just had, but as always, members should bear in mind the continuation days that have been set aside if needed. And before I sit down, I'd just like to thank the bailiff, the Greff staff and ushers and Jan for still being in good spirits after such a long and gruelling week. Thank you.
Very much. Myself.
So one further matter in relation to future business. The Constable mentioned the fisheries proposition which has been lodged for February. I would ask the Assembly's permission to bring it forward to the 17th of January meeting. The proposition concerns regulations relating to fisheries and in particular licensing of French fishing boats in relation to their replacement vessel policy. This is to do with the negotiations that are ongoing between the European Union and us in connection with, through the UK, that is, through in relation to the ongoing what's called the extent and nature negotiations. We're hoping to conclude a deal. As part of that, it would be very helpful if these regulations were discussed early in order for us to have in place the relevant instruments to enable us to meet the requirements of those negotiations.
Your proposition is, would the Assembly please list it, notwithstanding the fact that the lodging period has not been fully complied with,
sir.
for the next sitting, which is in January?
Exactly, sir.
Very well. Is that seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the listing or anything of that nature? Those in favour of permitting this to be dealt with in January, kindly show. Those against? Very well. Then, Chair of PPC, in the light of that, do you have anything further proposition with regard to public business going forward?
No, just to say that we will take the draft Sea Fisheries TCA licensing of fishing boats, amendment of law and regulations at the next meeting. Thank you.
Do members agree to take the future business as proposed by the Chair of PPC? Very well. And that then concludes, to a great extent, the business of the Assembly. Siliconitub.
Thank you, sir. I had been looking forward to making the traditional speech on behalf of the Conitubs, because for the first time, I would not have to play second fiddle to the senior senator, who invariably had all of the best lines. Although I suppose going second was better than going last. Not that this was a problem for former Deputy Judy Martin, who always managed to get us laughing in her Christmas speech on the part of the deputies, however acrimonious were the debates that had just been occupying us. But that was before the tragic events of last week, the loss of 3 fishermen last Thursday on the vessel L'Écu, and of 9 of my parishioners at Haudemont in Pier Road on Saturday morning. It is impossible for us now to think about the coming period of festivity and family reunions without reflecting on the recent experience of those bereaved by the recent tragedies and how sombre and grief-stricken their Christmases will be. The whole community has, of course, rallied round to support generously, and various professional and voluntary bodies involved in the aftermath of last week's tragedies have been marvellous. I say, of course, because that's what Jersey does. That's what islanders do so well, whether it's in response to the most recent events or to other national and international shocks which struck a chord with islanders, such as the invasion of the Ukraine in February. As of this morning, the outpouring of collective grief has been echoed by His Majesty King Charles III and the Queen Consort. While this past year has had its moments of shared rejoicing, such as is always the case on Liberation Day, and this was supplemented with the island's celebration of Her late Majesty the Queen Platinum's Jubilee, these moments were surely overshadowed by the loss of Her Majesty on the 8th of September. Once again, islanders came together to mourn in the darkness that followed the disappearance of the person who had become our lodestar. The parish halls played their part then, as they have done on other occasions, in providing a place where parishioners gather in good times as well as bad. And returning to the twin tragedies, which are concentrating minds as well as efforts at present, we have been particularly well served by our honorary police forces this year. They are still providing cover at various points around the Haut-du-Mont cordon. Parish officers are still delivering hot food and drink to honorary and states officers, while even our parish refuse workers have been delivering early hot breakfasts. This work and the work of the State's Police, Fire Service, Andium Homes and trained counsellors will be ongoing in the days and weeks ahead, both in investigating the loss of the fishing vessel's crew and the explosion at Haut-du-Mont, and in the aftermath of both tragedies, bringing comfort at a time of sorrow to relatives of the victims and more than 30 displaced households. So on behalf of the constables, I wish you and your family a very happy Christmas and a peaceful New Year. I hope that you will have the chance to stretch your legs after sitting in your chair for so many hours. We extend our greetings to the deputies and their families, the Dean and his family, the Deputy Bailiff, the Crown officers, the greffier and her team, the Judicial Gref and the Jurats, the ushers and Jan, to the scrutiny officers and everyone else who works so hard to enable the workings of this legislature. The constables work closely with the emergency services, and we wish their officers a very happy Christmas and a restful New Year with their families, and we acknowledge the vital contribution of everyone who works in health and social care, especially those who will be working while we're sitting down in front of the turkey next weekend. Speaking of turkeys, and the ones that wouldn't vote for Christmas, this speech wouldn't be complete without mentioning the general election on the 22nd of June this year. And with my father of the house, although we're not a house, hat on, rather than my senior constable hat, I have to confess that I still have to pinch myself sometimes when I come into this chamber and deal with the conflicting emotions with which our newest members will already be familiar. Stage fright, self-doubt, even surprise. But chief of which is surely the sense of pride in being elected to represent the people of this island. And so I want to finish by extending especially warm greetings at Christmas time to the newly elected members of this Assembly. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Sergeant.
Thank you, sir. My fellow deputies and constable. I speak to you at the end of what has been an eventful year for us all. The last election saw not only the demise of the senators, but perhaps one of the biggest changes this chamber has seen, with so many ministers entirely new to this assembly. It is of particular satisfaction to me to see the doubling of numbers of my Reform Jersey colleagues. My ambition to see party politics delivering real democracy in a Jersey dominated by a caring social democratic party is coming to fruition. Although even I have to admit there's some way to go yet. We have also welcomed our new Lieutenant Governor, and I hope that he and Dr. Kidd enjoy their time here and are already feeling the warmth of the Jersey welcome. However, it is with sorrow that I speak at a time when Jersey has seen two tragic events with the loss of 12 lives. What has emerged from these tragedies is that we have seen once again the amazing response from Jersey people who came forward spontaneously with offers of help. We are particularly grateful for the response of our emergency services. It is clear, and it's clear from the Facebook reaction to journalists' questions at the press conference that the public will brook no criticism of the fire service, the police, or the paramedics that serve us so well. And I hope that this will still be remembered in the next round of pay talks. I hope thanks and appreciation do not pay the bills. I speak also as Britain seems broken, suffering unprecedented strikes, as many key workers, especially in the public sector, seek pay rises that will help them cope with rampant inflation. The British government has responded with Scrooge-like stubbornness. Let us not, in the next round of pay talks, follow their example. At this time of year, many will make reference to Charles Dickens, the supposed originator of the Christmas as a time for charitable giving. In A Christmas Carol, Scrooge's nephew says, "Christmas is a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time when men and women seem by one consent to think of people below them as if they were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys." But Dickens did not believe that charity was only for Christmas. Scrooge was told by Marley's ghost, "Mankind is my business. The common welfare was my business." And having learned his lessons from the spectral visitations, Scrooge extended his good intentions beyond Christmas Day. He did more than deliver an enormous turkey to the Cratchit family. He raised Bob's wages, and then he allowed them to warm a warm fire, and he cared for Tiny Tim like a father. Do we need to be stirred by ghosts in order to do our human duty by those who today are cold and hungry? Not just at Christmas, but throughout the year. Thanks to this week's decision, the Tiny Tims of today will receive free healthcare. We are a wonderfully generous island, as our response to the recent crisis with so much generosity has shown. We must commend Andiam Homes, for example, who promptly rehoused all those rendered homeless by the explosion. We must harness this can-do attitude to eliminate the scourge of poverty from our island, to ensure that Bob Cratchit of today, as well as the Mrs. Cratchits, earn enough to feed their families without having to resort to today's equivalent of the workhouse, the food bank. We had no need of them just a few short years ago. This is perhaps another of our insidious imports from the UK that threaten to take us back to Victorian times. Let's remember our duty to all mankind and hope for a more prosperous new year for all. And this season's greetings, my season's greetings, go to His Excellency and Dr. Kidd, the bailiff, the deputy bailiff, the greffier of the States, the deputy greffier and the assistant greffiers, the dean, the attorney general and the solicitor general, the viscounts and their staff, the ushers and all of the state staff behind the scenes who have enabled the state's meetings to operate. Obviously, to wish Jan the season's greetings. Now she takes a break from pouring our tea. And in particular, I must focus on the scrutiny officers and research assistants who do such a wonderful job enabling us, and particularly me, to stay competent. Thank you.
Honourable of St Helier, Deputy Southern, thank you for your kind words and expressions of collective good wishes on behalf of the Assembly. And I'm very happy indeed to have this traditional opportunity to reciprocate them. The difficulty with being the third speaker, as the Connétable St Helier has suggested, is that pretty well everything that one might have wanted to say has already been said by other people. But even so, and notwithstanding the injunction in standing orders against repetition, I might repeat that, notwithstanding the injunction in standing orders against repetition, I would not wish this opportunity to pass without reflecting a little on the extraordinary year that we will shortly leave behind us. I won't speak for long. It has been an arduous week of state's business and a difficult time for us all in this chamber and in the island more widely. It will be easy to approach these reflections with an element of sadness and somberness in the light of very recent events, and I will touch on these in just a moment. Looking back to last year, however, we could not have expected the year that 2022 was going to be. We looked forward with anticipation, perhaps, to the first Liberation Day, where we could all join together after 2 years of COVID restrictions. And this was augmented enormously by a royal visit of the Earl and Countess of Wessex, and then the celebration of Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And although these were happy and entirely positive events for Jersey and its people, the Russian invasion of Ukraine was a sobering backdrop to them. Then, of course, there was a general election, and there are now many new faces in the Assembly and a new government. No sooner, however, had the new Assembly been elected and then sworn in before the Royal Court that we faced the enormous shock and deep collective sadness of the passing of Her late Majesty the Queen. I'm not going to dwell on that event at all, because a great deal was said at the time, and rightly so, both in this Assembly and in the island more generally. We also, of course, unprecedented in the life of any assembly since the 1950s, proclaimed a new sovereign, our King. And I'm sure that that ceremony will live in the memories of many of us for years to come. And of course, we appointed and swore in a new Lieutenant Governor. And His Excellency Admiral Kidd and Dr. Kidd have, if I may put it this way, thrown themselves into island life and shown what a marvellous addition to the island they are and will be. The Assembly, if I may say so, has worked extremely hard and with enormous commitment and enthusiasm. It has met for 48 days this year, including special sittings, and this new Assembly alone has passed 16 propositions and has conducted the longest ever government plan debate in the last 5 years, with 26 amendments and 10 amendments to amendments. In addition, it has conducted the longest ever debate in the 135-year history of the Assembly, the Bridging Island Plan, lasting 10 days with 103 amendments and 13 amendments to amendments. It is possibly true that a greater familiarity with standing orders might have eased the business of the Assembly, including the arduous one over the last few days, but it has been impressive, and the enthusiasm and level of knowledge displayed has equally been impressive. And if I may say so, you are entitled to feel proud of the first few months in the life of this new Assembly. I think I can say, however, with confidence, that members can now be treated as seasoned debaters, and the honeymoon period is over. So we will address familiarity with standing orders in the new year. In reflecting on the business of the Assembly, it would be wrong not to say that both I and all members have relied on the greffier and her team. We rely on them for their commitment and dedication, and I would like, therefore, to pay a tribute to the enormous contribution to the work of the Assembly made by the greffier, the deputy greffier, and the team at the State's Gref. Perhaps I am particularly aware of their contribution because of the amount of assistance I get on a regular basis, and I'm grateful for the level of support and guidance that I receive in the day-to-day functioning of my office. We might, a little over a week ago, have been simply anticipating this just-past government plan debate and a gentle end after that to the business year. That was not to be. And the two tragedies after the last 10 days or so took place. I don't intend to speak about them. Others in this session have done so, and I agree with all that has been said by the Connétable of St Helier and Deputy Southern. And the Chief Minister spoke in the Assembly earlier this week. And in the last few days, we attended a vigil where His Excellency and the Dean, in their different ways, encapsulated the feelings of the island and said what needed to be said and provided a space for reflection, for hope, and indeed for optimism. I do not need to say more. It would perhaps be inelegant to do so. We are both sorrowful, but also extremely proud of the efforts of islanders in support of those affected. It is, in this sad context, Jersey at its best, and I echo all that has been said about the emergency services and the honorary services within the island that have responded so magnificently to the challenge that has been placed before them in the last week or so. And that perhaps is the relevance, in a way, of this time of year. Whether you approach this period from the point of view of the traditional and much-loved Christmas story, with all the optimism, light, and new promise that brings, or simply from the natural human experience of the winter solstice, which itself signaled the beginning of the increasing light in the world as the seasons changed. This is a time when we may go still. We may reflect on what has happened, for good or for ill, on the friends that we have lost, and we have lost a number from this chamber, and the friends that remain, in whom we may rejoice and anticipate with optimism and hope what is to come. Before concluding, it is right that I give members the statistics of the fines that have been levied. We have levied £300 total so far, not including this week. So there'll be a significant amount further. What I can say in this season of giving and goodwill is that no one has paid up yet. And we know who you are. And the chair will feel perfectly content to reflect in its rulings and in its attitude whether there are outstanding bills from members who should have paid their fines. But let levity, if indeed it was levity, aside, in any event, whatever your views and whatever your philosophies, it's time now for us all to pause for a while and for everyone to take an extremely well-earned rest. No matter what Christmas may mean for you, I would like for myself and for the Deputy Bailiff, on behalf of His Excellency and the Crown Officers, for the Dean and for the Greffier, the Viscount, the Chief Usher, and all members of the respective teams, to thank you for your kindness, your support over this last year, and wish you and your families a peaceful and happy Christmas break and an optimistic and joyful 2023. Thank you. That concludes all matters for the Assembly for this year, and the Assembly stands adjourned until the 17th of January.